While we're waiting for everyone to come in, I just want to say that I so appreciate and grateful for all of you being here today. And I hope when you leave here today that you'll be grateful that you were actually here, because you'll walk away with some really important things, and some learning tools that you can put in your toolbox as you start to talk with your adult children. Suzanne, I'm just curious, what made you come on here today?
Well, Deborah, you and I have spoken privately, and I know you have some wonderful insights and gifts to share with us. In fact, I invited several of my friends to join today. And so I know that at the end of this presentation, I'm going to walk away with some really great pieces of information, because you're amazing.
Suzanne, okay, I'm blown away right now. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Clara, why are you on here today?
Well, I'm gonna say ditto to Suzanne. I think you're extremely knowledgeable, and you've really helped me with my son in language speaking. So it's been extremely helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, Clara. Joanne, can you talk or?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I wasn't planning on being on video, but yes, I am actually a friend of Suzanne's, and she had shared your information with me. And we both have daughters that are the same age, and we're beginning to have conversations about their future career goals. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to learn from you and get some guidance of, my next steps with my own daughter.
Wonderful. I really appreciate that. And just for context, Suzanne and Joanne, how old are your young adults, your girls?
20.
Yeah.
So they're just starting their junior year in college.
Right. Do they both go to the same college?
No, they don't. They're near each other, but they've been friends since kindergarten.
Love that. Right. You know what, you guys, it's so funny that you say that, because I've had conversation with friends, when they're in kindergarten, right? And as they're going up, that kind of societal messaging that we get, I don't know about you guys, but when my daughter was growing up, I was in very high, demanding kind of schools. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, very competitive. So if somebody's kid did something, just in my own parenting, I'm being really vulnerable right now, I'd be going, well, why did you get an A too? Was it hard for you? And I would just, oh my God, I was so deregulated, unregulated. It was ridiculous. And I feel, really bad about those times. And there were good times too, but then they get into high school, and that junior, senior year where it's like, did you send in the essay? Did you speak to your counselor? Did you do this? Did you do that? How many of us did that? Let's just raise our hand. We're part of a very safe club right now. Oh, please don't leave me hanging. Okay. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Clara. And I just realized, to be honest with you, when my daughter was during that time, it was, oh, hi, Janice. How are you?
Hi.
We're just talking, and I'm just curious, why did you come on today?
Well, I'm a friend of Suzanne's, and so I heard about this. I have two boys that are at USC and in their senior year, so this is very relevant.
Oh, Janice, I went to USC.
Oh, wow.
I went at the time where, quite frankly, anybody could get in. So if I was trying to apply today, would be no shot in hell. Just saying.
That's the way of so many schools, right?
Right. So congratulations.
And no Trojans. I have a hard time saying that. No, wait, that's not it. It's fight on, right?
No, it was Trojans.
Oh, I know, but I think they say fight on. I went to
they do.
UCLA.
They do. That's so wonderful. Well, welcome.
Thanks.
So we were talking about growing up, right? And the kind of pressure that we put on because of societal things, who's doing what, where are they going, especially during college. It was, how many of you felt that pressure were just to relieve yourself? I felt like a boiling pot, and it would be like, she'd walk in from a long day of school. I go, just have some questions. did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? Did you do that? And it was like to relieve the pot that was boiling inside of me, but then I just splashed all the hot water onto her. And, you know, that's how it went. So the next one, Jairo. So what I learned is that senior year stress, and I don't know for your kids, but it's kind of gone on, you know, it went on to the college kind of thing. And it was an emotional roller coaster with a lot of fighting and things like that, and parent-child conflict. And I just realized after she went to college that I needed help, to be honest with you, that I needed to learn how to regulate myself, that I needed to learn new tools on how to communicate. Because I will tell you something, from the research that I've done, there is a new, and this is a fact, this is science, there is a new level, and this is for all of you to remember, psychological sophistication and communicative dexterity that it would have been unheard of in any other parenting time, the way we were parented. And now it's today's young adults' mandate to be seen, to be heard, to be felt. It is not only essential for them, but as I said before, it is a mandate. And if that's what they are requiring just because of the social media, it's instant gratification, it's what they want to hear. So now there's this new disparaging that's going on. If they don't hear from us what they're getting on social media, it becomes a whole separation. And so what we need to learn is that language that will help them to come back and connect. Because look at, we all want to be our child's anchor, not their anger. So that's sort of the road that I've been on. And I'm going to teach you all today the 3 pillars that I've learned that has changed the way that we communicate. And as I said, I made a promise to myself to not relive those mistakes. And I'll tell you something else. And Suzanne, all of you know this, and Clara, because I worked with her son, that these kids have really taught me, because here they had hired me to be their career coach. And when I was like, okay, well, let's get on to this, I would spend so much time excavating them because they wouldn't feel good enough, or I can't make that call. And I'd go, why can't you make that call? Well, because I feel like I'm stalking them, or I don't feel good enough, or I have imposter syndrome. And I would go, oh my God, wait a minute. There's another language out there that these kids feel. And if I don't attach myself to that, there's no way that I can get them their career. So it'd be interesting that, you know, my 4-step program, 3 of it would be to excavate them. Where did you get this from? Why do you feel this way? Let's explore this. So the next one, Jairo. So what I've learned is constructive conversation. And by the way, you guys, everyone who's on here today you'll get a PDF of the Gottman questions, the curious questions, and some of these slides, so that you'll have in your toolbox the actual slides for you to relate to. So how do we show empathy, respect, and open-mindedness? So I'm sure a lot of your sons, your daughter now are going, I'm looking for the internship, I'm looking for the job, I can't find the job, I sent out 4 resumes, nobody ever got back to me. And what I say to my clients is, here's a newsflash, they're not going to get back to you. So how can we teach you to advocate for yourself? But perhaps growing up, they never learned that, because I don't know you guys, but I was paving the road to like the Wizard of Oz. Every crack that was in the road, everything that was going to crack, I would be sure that they would not fall into it. So now they get into college and all of this career stuff is coming up, and adulting is harder than ever thanks to COVID. Where do they go from here? How do they learn these skill sets? And by the way, these are skill sets for them as well that I teach. So empathy, respect. I'm just curious, Suzanne, like when you speak to your daughter, is she talking now about internships or jobs or getting their resume out there? What's the vibe that you're getting from her?
The vibe I'm getting from my daughter is more of, I don't know where to find an internship. I don't know what internship I should get. She has, she doesn't have a clear path to how to get to where she wants to go. And she doesn't really know where she wants to go. But she knows she needs an internship.
Exactly. Suzanne, that's if I tell you that's 99.9% of my clients, that
Yeah.
going into college, they didn't know what they wanted to do, and coming out of college, they don't know what to do. Now they're trying to adult, and that pressure is so much. And I'm sure as a mother, you don't know where the internships are, and you don't want to enable her in that way. So you may get a lot of the stress factor onto you, and it's really hard to regulate yourself because, you know, you want the best for her. You want her to get that. And I'm sure there's some ways that you're going, are you kidding? Like, look on Google or whatever. And we don't want to do that because it'd be so easy to rescue, right? Because that's what we've learned to do. So what we want to do is be a supporter. And how do we do that? For an example, like for your daughter, and I'm going to go into each one of you, Janice and Joanne and Clara. If your daughter, when your daughter says something like that, what is your typical response? I'm curious.
Hmm.
Or anyone, what is your typical response, Janice or Joanne?
I think I have said, have you talked to the career guidance counselors, or have you met with anybody in your department? Ask what their friends are doing, that kind of thing. I've probably been more hands off than some people. Not sure if that, it's good or not.
It's good, but can I tell you, Janice,
Hmm.
for these young adults, when you're asking them, did you see the career thing? Did you do that? Did you, they're hearing, I'm not doing enough. I'm not good. It's just the way they think.
Mhm.
And what I might suggest for that, exactly what you said, is what's your son's name or your son's names?
Oh, Henry and Zach, they're twins.
Okay, let's take Henry, for example. For that, you might say, Henry, I'm curious. What are you really interested in doing?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. And this is for Suzanne and Joanne and Clara too. I'm curious. What comes to mind when you're thinking about a career? And what we all want to start with is basically, how can I support you? There is a system called the Gottman Institute. Have anybody of you heard of the Gottman Institute?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I have taken a lot of the Gottman Institute methodology and broken it down for not only us as parents, but for the kids as well, because it is the foremost way of communication. And we're going to talk, or how can we work together to achieve your goals? But really, Zach, I want you to know this is on you. I'm just here to support you.
Mm-hmm.
Then we do the follow-up, and you can go to the next one, Jairo, is, again, some of these examples. What are your biggest worries? Really excavating at this juncture, you guys, it's more finding out about your kids that maybe you didn't know before. Because, right, we've never asked them, who are you? We've always said, what community service are you doing? What college do you want to get into? What GPA do you have? It's really interesting, you guys, when I go through the proverbial questions that every employer is going to ask them. When I say, oh, tell me a little bit about yourself, they go, I graduated from USC. I have a 4.0. My major was this. And I can tell you right now, the wall is going to go up and they're going to go next. And what I teach kids is to tell their story. So I want us as parents that maybe we could find a story that you didn't know about and they didn't know about. Because I have to tell you, when I'm working with them and those two things align, they're like, oh my God, I didn't realize this. Here's another question that you might want to ask your young adults. And this has been a huge thing in what I do. I have a thing called the to-do list. And the to-do list, the first question I ask them, what were you doing when you were 8 or 10, or when you can remember, when you were just lost in time and space, and where you were passionate about what you were doing before I called you for dinner? I have to tell you, I get tears 99% of the time because they've so gotten away from what their passion is, what they loved in life, what brought them joy and happiness before you call them for dinner. And that would open up, you guys, for you, a whole spectrum of then to the next thing that we're going to be discussing. Hyro, next, please. Is then having active listening. How many of you feel when your kids talk to you, you get a little deregulated and want to just go in and go, well, have you thought about this? Did you do this? Did you do that? How many? Maybe not in the way that I'm presenting it, but Suzanne, Joanne, Clara?
No, I think I'm a good listener. I don't know that I ask the right probing questions, but when my daughter is willing to talk, I think I do listen. But again, I'm not probably prompting her to continue and go on.
Exactly. And so what happened? I'm just curious, Joanne, what happens at that time? So she goes, I can't find an internship. I'm really worried, you know, all of those narratives, and you're listening. Do you sit there and go, I don't like have a comeback? Like, I don't know what to say at this moment.
Sure.
Yeah. And that gets so, and how do you feel after that when you just kind of go, oh, shoot, I just don't know what to
Well,
say.
I wasn't very helpful.
Right? Well, that was a good talk. I listened to you. And exactly. And then we feel so lost because we know we can't go back into that 8th grade mode, but yet nobody's ever taught us how to cross that bridge. It's so frustrating. So here's the key.
And I think my challenge is I'm not familiar with the field my daughter wants to go into. So
What does she want to go into?
She's pre-med. So I don't know anything about medical school and internships in that area. If it were another area, I'd probably be helpful, but not this area.
Joanne, it's so funny you say that because my business has led into helping 4 medical students. One a colorectal surgeon. I couldn't even say it when he talked. Like, what is that? What does that mean? A dentist and a cardiologist. Because FYI, when they're doing their, you know, to get matched for fellowships or for becoming what they want to become, like surgeons or whatever, they have to tell their story. So I help them to excavate their story so that when all those medical people are going through the essays and the recommendations and their CVs, the story tells volumes of who they are. And it's a game changer. And I love when these kids call me and they go, I just got 4 interviews. I just got 25 interviews. And then we role play their story and then they land their job, their career in medical. And I have to be honest with you, I never knew anything either, but being able to tell your story. And this is what we're talking about today, guys, is how we get our kids to tell their story. Because when they come to know their story, back to when the question is, tell me a little bit about yourself. And they go into that, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Instead, it can be like, thank you so much for asking. You know, I remember when I was 5 years old and I wanted to buy food in the cafeteria, but my mom wouldn't let me. Let's say this is for a sales job. This is actually a true story. And I wanted to buy food in the cafeteria, but my mom wouldn't let me. She made me salami sandwiches every day, 5 salami sandwiches in a sandwich. And I realized I wanted money for the cafeteria. So I would tell everybody, too bad you've got to buy food in the cafeteria, like pizza and hamburgers. Ugh, I get to have these salami sandwiches and they are delicious. And my mom gets it from Italy. She would have the kindergartners, true story, lined up with $5. She didn't just sell the sandwich. She sold each slice for $5 because her mom one day had opened up her Dora Explorer backpack and out came $20 bills. And her mother thought she was like a drug dealer, but you know, she was 5, so that wasn't going to ever be the case. But she opened up her and she's like, Sophia, what's going on here? And she had to fess up. That's what she was doing. In an interview, we had 5 interviews lined up. She landed every interview because guess what? What didn't matter that she went to USC, with all due respect, Harvard, Yale, whatever, every class she took, it was that this sales was in her DNA. So what we're trying to find out from our kids today is what's in their DNA. What is working for them? What's not working for them? So active listening's great. Let's talk about what we can do. So I don't know if any of you have heard about the 4 horsemen. Have any of you heard about the 4 horsemen?
Yes.
Huh? Good
Yes.
girl. How do you know about it, Jill?
Janice.
Denise?
Probably I bought the book. Well, this is Gottman, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and it was about relationships, marital issues, and I read the book and thought it was quite constructive.
Yes, that's exactly right. And by the way, this is what we do with our kids, consciously or unconsciously. How many of you, just recently, I'm just curious, with your kids looking for jobs up, Suzanne, for instance, when they're, I can't find internships, any one of these, do you feel that you do?
Not yet, because she's only a junior, but if she doesn't have an internship next summer, I don't know, I probably could fall into one of these.
That's exactly right, babe. How about you, Joanne?
I think even just in our current conversations, I think I'm unintentionally critical. As you were giving examples of asking the questions of, have you thought about this? Are you doing this? And so I feel she then shuts down because, as you have pointed out to me, that the questions are really telling her she's not enough or she's not doing enough. And so I think I may fall under that criticism piece unintentionally. And so thinking more about moving to open-ended questions of saying, what would be your ideal job? What would be your, what do you hope for, as you move forward? So thinking about how I can help her move towards, as you said, her passions, because I'm always thinking about what she's passionate about. Right now, she's choosing a career, and I have a little disappointment because she's thinking about financial gains from her career choice, and I'm thinking that's doesn't always sustain you in a career. Having financial. I mean, that's important, but not for me, as we're ending towards more the end of our careers, it really isn't as important. And so we have the hindsight. So I'm curious about in this workshop how we can help them mine their passions when social media, as you mentioned, really really encourages them to look at the materialistic aspects of life, having more, doing more things, which is all connected to finances. And so I'm curious about that.
Joanna, thank you so much for being so open about that. That's exactly right. I just learned something the other day. A guy wrote a book. It was with Oprah at the 92nd Street Y here. And the book is called Getting the Life You Want. And he was talking about when we get older, we have like a crystallization of how the world works, right? And what we want to stay away from. So you want to impart that wisdom and you want to impart that knowledge and you want to impart that. But quite frankly, we can't in that way that you just spoke about, that I did, that Clara did, that we've all done. You want to sit on the sidelines, be really aware of the criticism, the contempt, the defensiveness, and the stonewalling, which, by the way, you mentioned before, where she opens up maybe to you and you don't know what to say. And that's a way, again, unintentionally, in their mind, becomes stonewalling, which is just like, okay, you have nothing to say, then I'm going to walk away. Or she gets flooded. And how many of your kids get flooded? Like, oh, you just don't understand what I'm going through. You just don't understand that. And then you just have to say, sweetheart, it looks like you're getting flooded right now. we're going to come back to this in about 45 minutes or tomorrow, because right now, anything I say is not going to enter your brain. Your brain right now is flooded with emotions. And so we're not going to really get anywhere right now. I'm always here for you, but once we're calm, we can re-engage. And I'm going to tell you how that gets done. So I want you guys all to be aware, because we all do have this in our relationships. Like Jenny said, it's so difficult in parenting as well. So the antidotes for this. So when you feel like having criticism, and I'll put this for all of you, but Joanne in particular with the criticism comment, first and foremost, you guys, we want to remove you from our vocabulary. You should be doing this. Are you sure this is what you want? You would be better off doing this. Have you considered that? Stop. Instead, we want to start with a gentle startup, which may be, Zach, do you have like a minute to talk? Henry, I'd love to talk to you. Do you have any time? Those are gentle startups. Do you have a minute? So that when they're talking to you, or you can start to engage, you're not immediately going like jumping in, like fight and flight feeling, right? Then with contempt, does everybody know what contempt is? Contempt is like, for instance, you know, your child comes to you and like she wants to be in medical school, and like you're saying, it's kind of like you kind of roll. I don't know if you do this, but it just sometimes happens to us where it's like, oh God, I can't believe it's like, does she not know? Really? You really want to do that? Like, you know, you don't make as much money now as you used to. That's contempt. And may I just say, that was my go-to for so many years, that too many to count. So what we want to do is come from appreciation. So again, I'll use you an example, Joanne. It's like, what's your daughter's name again?
Grace.
Bryce?
Grace,
Oh, Grace. Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Grace.
Yes.
Grace.
It's perfect for her. She is my Grace.
Oh, I love that. Look at you guys, right? We all come from love. If they only knew that all we are coming from is love. But again, as I said before, their love language right now, based on social media and everything, is, are you seeing me? Are you hearing me? Are you feeling me? And you're just going, I'm trying my best. But with that, with contempt, for instance, with Grace's Grace, I want to let you know that we replace you with feelings, because how many of us never learned feelings? I'm going to be the one that raises my hand. I don't care. I did. I had no clue about feelings. I'm a get it done now, figure it the freak out, move the fuck on. Excuse my language, but that was my go-to. But now I've learned that contempt, instead, we can appreciate. Grace, I just want to let you know that I so appreciate you wanting to take this medical path. If that is something that you're passionate about, I'm all here to support you. And then we're going to talk more about the opening questions. Do you see how different that feels, Joanne?
Yes. I've been, it's interesting. I've been identifying what I see as her character strengths versus her sharing my feelings. And I'm all a feelings person. And I've been sharing, you know, because she's a very compassionate person. She's a very giving, she's a very caring person. So I've been moving to identifying what I have seen in her, just to put that to the forefront of her thinking. And then asking her, you know, how do you see yourself using these strengths in that profession? And she's wanting to go into law. So, and it's a field that we were a little surprised that she chose. Both my husband and I are, you know, professors. And so having her go into law, which seems more cut and dry, but thinking about, I'm just still really curious about what about law is she most interested in, and how it ties into what I see her strengths are: compassion, empathy. She's a great listener, and just trying to have her figure that piece out. Why law, and how can she be her, her true self in that profession?
Joanne, and I love what you're saying. And what's coming up for me is to excavate a little deeper. You've got some knowledge about your child. And it'd be interesting to all those things that you say then to get more curious with her. Not you. I feel that you're an empathetic person. Is that something that you feel about yourself? Yes, Mom, I do. I'm so curious. In what capacity do you feel, like, where do you see yourself being empathetic? Because I've seen you with your friends or whatever, but you let her kind of bubble up what all these things mean for her. I'm hearing from you that you're still wanting to kind of lean into and guide without maybe going a little bit deeper. So she may not, you guys, I have to tell you something. When I'm working with clients, and I have had moms call me and like say something like that. And then when I work with the child, I have to, or the young adult, they don't feel that way about themselves at all. And I'm going, oh my God, but this is the thing I got from you, from the parent. But it's not how, like, I'm working with somebody right now, and the mother said something, and I'm not saying this, but she's this, she's that, she's this. I'm getting in with her. This girl, and I'm just saying, has no self-esteem because, and she'll say right out, my parents enabled me. And then my father was critical of everything. So when a friend would come over, he'd go, oh, wow, Susan got fat. Like, I can't believe she got fat. Everything's critical, comparing. And then they gave her everything. And it was so different than what the mother perceived her child to be. And I'm not saying that, I'm just saying once you start to talk to the child, it comes out, and we keep our knowledge or what we think of them on the sidelines. You can't believe what opens up. And you go, I never thought you thought that way, or I didn't know that. And we're going to talk more about that. And I appreciate you sharing that. And that may be totally true for your daughter, but I'm going to show you ways to get even more curious about those words that you just mentioned. Then defensiveness. Really, you want law, or you want this? Like, Janice, I'm curious, what does your sons want to get into?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I was going to share one of them, I think, is having some of these new realizations about what makes him tick. And I think and then the other one I'm a little more worried about. The first one is applied math and artificial intelligence. But he's Henry, he talks a lot. He shares a lot. He's really surprised me. And he'll call and just go, oh, we haven't talked in a while. And he's sharing. So what I thought was a real win for him was he's had this revelation that applied math, and he felt apologetic, which I thought was funny. It's like, Mom, I'm not sure that I really want a job in my major. And I said, oh, tell me about that. And he said, I'm really, really loving this club I'm in. And it's about ethics and technology. And he said, I might want to go this direction because I feel like I'm really making a difference. And it was the best conversation I've had with him, because it's like, I was totally encouraging. It was just so easy to go, wow, that's awesome. I'm glad you're learning. And then then the next time I talked to him, he had to spend 4 hours on Sunday, because he's a leader in that club now. He had to spend 4 hours on Sunday interviewing kids for the club.
Yeah. And
he got all this great insight on what it's like to be on the other side. And he said, Mom, I feel really bad. There's this girl, I just can't let her into the club because it's the passion. She didn't have anything in her world anything that she expressed an interest in that made any sense with our club. So I thought that was sort of an interesting thing to share, because he was learning exactly what you opened up with, or didn't open up with, but that like I have a 4.0, I went to the school, this and that. That wasn't what was important to them.
That's
And
exactly right.
so this was really a good example, because I just think I can see him finding his own path, and he's including me in it. And I'm not judging. It's easy to, he's on a good path. The other one is an English major, and I think he's going to have a much harder time figuring out what he wants to do, you know, even though he's a little bit harder. He doesn't talk to me as much, and he's had a lot of mental health issues to contend with, not related to school, but certainly during his school years isn't helping any. So
Yeah. Janice, thank you for sharing that. That is so fascinating, because that's exactly right. A little story. I had a kid over the summer whose mom called me. And the reason why, you guys, I decided to do this, I went, like, I had like a V8. I went, wait a minute, Deborah, the people who call you are the mothers. The kids aren't calling me. The mothers are calling me, going, they don't know where to go. And by the way, Janice, 99% of the kids that I work with, their major, what they've studied, had nothing
right.
to do with what they want to do. And that becomes really hard. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, God, I studied this. I'm such a loser. I mean, it's so hard for them. But, and then we go into, what clubs have you been involved with? What things have you done that brought out passion? And so I had this kid, just a sidebar, who was graduated from University of Maryland, honors, the whole spiel, the mother's like, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, which he was. He's like incredible, but he didn't know where to go. He just lost his job, but still could get on a plane to Morocco to be with his friends. I would have maybe not gone on that trip and try to find a job, but hey, again, these are the kids. It's like, whatever, I'm going to go with my friends. So he comes back and I go, what do you want to do? And he goes, I want to be in private equity in New York City. Okay. It's already like July. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, maybe the trip to Morocco might have kept you back a few things. I mean, I don't say it like that, but that's like what I'm thinking. We excavated him to the point where he was able, he goes, I didn't know that was a story. I didn't know that's what I did. I didn't know when I was in my room and I was calculating numbers, or I had a bank, I played bank or whatever, became his story, that I set him up with a private equity company. Because after I vet everybody, I can open doors. I'm not a headhunter, but I open doors. He walked in, and when they said, tell me a little bit about yourself, he was so engaging. He was so himself. He was able to tell his story. It takes all the pressure and anxiety off these kids. And they're like, come at me. I'll tell you what my strengths are. My strengths are organizing, filing, perfectionism. No, it's, I feel like my strength is, one time when I ran a club and I was interviewing people, I realized what I was looking for. Do you see, you guys, how that just opens up doors for these kids, for your kids? And that's what I'm trying to teach too today with you guys, that you can get that from them with the right questioning. So we take responsibilities. If we get defensive or we use the word, just say, you know what, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say you. This is your journey. I'm just here to support you. So I'm going to take responsibility for what I just said. Go on, tell me what it is. And then again, the stonewalling, if it gets out of hand or whatever, or like what you're saying with him, just to self-soothe yourself, walk away, go work out, go do something, and do not engage. Next, Jairo. So again, recognizing their efforts, the power of curiosity. If there's a takeaway today, it is to get curious and not think that we know who our children are, because this is a different time in their life. They're emerging as adults and they are finding their way. And the only way we can really excavate is by getting curious. So instead of perhaps, did you find a job yet? You want to say, I'm curious. How is it going? For you, Suzanne, with her not finding, these are going to be very important for you. Maybe it's, I'm curious. Again, the startup. Let's review for a minute. So the startup is, sweetheart, can I just talk to you for a minute? Or if they come to you, go, I'm all ears. I'm just here to support you. How can I support you? Those are other little gentle startups. Then if she says something, I can't find a job, mom, I don't know where to go. You might say, I'm curious. Tell me a little bit more about it. Or I'm curious. I'm really interested in how you feel about that. We got to get to their feelings in order to really find out what they're thinking so that we can guide them to where they need to go. If you were asking, I'm curious, what's the difference that will make to you? Like Joanne, for you with the law, that's a great one. Because it gets them to have critical thinking skills instead of us telling them, well, I don't know about law. I don't know about doctors. I don't know about this. How will it affect you? Hyro, can you give me some more of the, and this, you guys, by the way, I'm going to be sending to you. What does it feel like, me listening to you right now? How are you feeling now about this? What do you like about it? And just staying really calm. And I'm telling you, you're going to hear things that you never thought possible, that you've never heard in your life. And because you know what, Janice, like you said, in relationships, other relationships between our kids, when we do this with our spouses, even, it's incredible to learn after 20 years, 30 years, things about them that we just didn't know. Maybe how did it feel growing up, being the oldest, being the middle, your brother? And so again, these are questions. How is this sitting with you guys? How is this feeling for you? Suzanne.
Not sure I'm going to be able to unearth what I'm supposed to with these questions. I don't know.
What do you mean? Why, babe?
I don't know. I'll have to read these questions a little bit more.
Yeah,
I'll
maybe
take a
you can
pass.
highlight. Huh?
I'm going to pass the baton on that question.
Okay, but I want to just go through an exercise with you. So give me an example, because everybody can relate to this. Give me an example when you speak to your daughter. One of your daughters. The one that can't find an internship or a job. She's the junior.
Well, she thinks she needs to find an internship in the areas of specialties in medicine that she's most interested in, where in fact, I think what the reality is that she's going to need to find an internship, any internship that exposes her to medicine, to, first of all, make sure that she really does want to go into medicine. And number two, it helps her learn as much of what she doesn't want to do as what she does want to do. Right. So we're kind of at this tug and pull right now where, she has this ideal in her mind, and I don't know that, she's going to be able to secure that ideal internship to help her understand exactly what path she wants to go down. So we're trying to support her, but she has this ideal, and I don't think that's necessarily attainable, nor is it necessary. So basically we're, the progress is going nowhere, and she's starting to get frustrated.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's getting the right amount of support at her school. So
no school does. I'm telling you, I have worked with U of Penn, every college possible. If after you'll go on my website, and I get very angry about this, not going to lie. I get so angry with these schools that there is no support for these kids because they are not in the world as it is to get the kids jobs. They're there to take your money and to learn. But I think that they make such a mistake with not teaching real life things and the skills that I'm teaching you, that I teach them. They go, I never got this in college. Why didn't I learn this in college? It's truly a shame. And I want to just say something to you though, Suzanne. I heard you say, she's, maybe it's not the right thing, whatever, and it's not attainable. I want to let you know, because I've worked with a lot of doctors, it is attainable. It is attainable to get a job where she shadows someone, even if she doesn't make money in it. Like to your point, where she learns what she likes and what she doesn't like. So I want us to, that's the whole point of this, right? Is to keep those feelings and those ideas we have for our kids and let them do that. And you will find, by going through these questions, understand more. Maybe it's something she's afraid of. Maybe there's fear in there that you've got to excavate, because that's what it's sounding like. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm a little fearful of trying to even attempt to get like a shadow job in some place. You know what I mean? It's just time to, yeah. And maybe it comes out like that. So trust me, she can do that, because I've helped other kids do that. So it is out there. And again, you don't know it. We don't know these things till we know them. Next one, Hyro. So again, you will get these things. So again, reassuring them without being patronizing, right? We got to keep that patronizing, because that's a little bit like the other. Clara, let me ask you a question. What have you felt like you've done differently with your son?
Well, if I can, it's really fun coming back, because
Yeah.
with you three ladies on here, it's I've been there. So for me, it's a repeat of learning. I used to always say, Nick, you should do this. Nick, you should do that. And Nick, why haven't you done this? And I've watched my growth, but I keep learning. So that's why I'm here today, because I've watched Nick work with Deborah, and he was the one, like, they're not answering.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a father. And Deb is like, you gotta call 10,000 times. Like, you have to keep calling, Nick. Doesn't mean you're a bother. So I've watched him. He happens to be in the entertainment business, which is a very difficult business. So as a mom, you're always concerned. But my wording, that's why I'm here, because you never stop learning. And I'm so aware of the words I use with him. And I said, he happens to be in Italy right now singing at a gig, and he'll be back tomorrow. And I said, so how did you get with this company in New York? And he says, I called 9 times. I just kept bugging them. And I was like, oh my God, it's everything I prayed for. But I learned to let go and let him make all the decisions. It's really hard, you guys.
Yeah.
But it's doable. So
Yeah.
it's so fun to be back here, because it's a repeat for me as a mom, as a parent, and how I speak to my child. It makes a world of difference. I can't.
And she's in repair right now, so when she falls back on that, she will take responsibility and go, you know what? I just said I apologize. I didn't mean that.
It's really how we talk to them, and we all only want the best for our children, but it's all in how we speak to them.
Right.
Because they're adults, and they really are adults. We're still treating them.
Right. It's so true. Claire, I'm so glad you said that, with the girl that I was telling you about that I'm doing with. So we got her a thing with a fertility clinic. She wants to help people put together, because she went through it herself. She wanted a family, it's a whole thing. And so she goes, same thing. I made a call. I go, well, did you call back? She goes, well, next week. And I'm like, it should be every 2 days. It can't be next week. And then she was kind of fighting with me a little bit about it, because she doesn't feel good about herself. And I just said, so I'm just curious, Allie, I'm just curious. What is it about this job that you really want? You say you're passionate about it, but I'm curious, how much passion do you really have for it? If you're willing to wait another week to call this doctor. And by the way, Allie, that person's a doctor. So that they might be a little busy. And perhaps that's why they're not getting back to you. They're all about, it's about me. And we want to kind of open their world a little bit, that there's a world outside of you, but you're very much a part of it, and you can go and get what you want if you have that desire and that passion, because it all comes from that. So again, reassuring without being patronizing, the ability to sense other people's feelings and how they see the things, like Clara was just saying, how he sees it. Because when I was working with Nick too, I would set up things and he'd go, well, I don't want to bother them. I go, pick up the phone right now, Nick. What's the worst that could happen? You know, just try it. And look what he's doing now. Now it's 9 times. It doesn't matter. It's what you really want. So again, not Pedro, I'm proud of you. Oh, that's so great. Oh, you know, I'm glad you did that. But there's specifics. I'm proud of your persistence. I'm proud that you reached out 9 times. The thing that they did, not just like a global statement. That's huge. That builds up self-esteem. Hyro, next. So again, then what we want to do is have attunement, which now overall is awareness of the situation, having that tolerance level, like you were saying, you know, just, oh, I got to tolerate this right now. This is so painful. Oh my God, you know, they're not calling, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. Oh my God, I just want to like blurt out right now everything that they're not doing and why I think they should be doing it. But just attuning to yourself and saying, hold back, then turning toward with the gentle startup and then the questioning, you know, the curiosity, and then understanding, having an understanding with non-defensive listening, and then empathy. I know, I trust that you will be able to find what you're looking for. And so remember, as Clara just said, it is their journey, not ours. And that's the hardest thing, you guys, right now in this part of their life. The wiping of the butt, the making of the sandwiches, the, you know, making sure they are safe, they are good, they are happy, they are this, they are that, is kind of over. And we can replace it now with what we're learning today to get them to the next step. Of course, always having unconditional love and support and becoming a hero by standing by. Because what we want from our kids is the idea that, and I had written this down, that we're their anchor, not their anger. We want to always remain the anchor. And even if they have to put the anger on themselves, to be honest with you, let it be. Because that anger or that frustration that your daughter's going through is going to help her to go deeper. But if we keep paving the road or suggesting other things, they're never going to do that deep dive. Next, Tyro. So again, what I was mentioning to all of you, and I'm happy with everybody on today, if you want to have a half-hour one-on-one, I'm offering a free consultation to just maybe do a deep dive, like this is where my kid is at. Any suggestions that you can have, Deborah, what can I do? I'm happy to talk to you about, because they can get to where they want to go. They can. There are so many opportunities out there, but they need direction. They need a GPS. Just like you're all on here today, we all need a GPS to get to where we need to go. So I'm here for that kind of career guidance and emotional support. And the difference is night and day that you will see in your kids, because it's not really your job right now. It'd be like one of your kids playing basketball or baseball. You wouldn't be out there hitting with them if you knew they wanted to go to the major leagues. And that's kind of how we have to look. They're ready to enter the major leagues of their life. And like Joanne was, but we're not equipped to know about the medical field or this field or the math field or the AI field. But someone who does, just so you know, my background has been in PR and marketing for over 30 years. So my job was to tell stories, to craft stories for companies, people, individuals to get on the Today Show, Good Morning America, or whatever. And now I've parlayed that into kids to find their stories from the proverbial questions. So when they're asked, they walk away from working with Career Design Lab with 4 or 5 stories, knowing who they are, with confidence and conviction, and they land it because they separate from the pack because they know they can't. Because right now, you guys, like in school, they're feeling that, where are you going? What are you doing? And it's all that like competitive stuff. And we want to take them out of that competitive mindset to create their own mind so then they can mind their career.
Mhm.
I hope this was helpful today in learning some of these tools. Any questions? How does this sit with you guys? Like, are you feeling, I can feel, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I can ask, I don't know if I can do, are you feeling that? What are you feeling?
So you and I had spoken before, and I do know that you bring a lot of value. Instead of a half an hour with me, could you do a half an hour with my daughter?
Sure. I'd be happy to.
If she were to say, oh my gosh, I would love to work with Deborah, I'm all over it, because I know you and I have already spoken. So
You know what? That'd be awesome. Absolutely.
and then I also had another friend who wanted to join. She is a senior, but she had a conflict. I'd love to connect you guys as well.
Sam, that'd be awesome. I really am passionate about helping as many people as I can with what I've learned, and obviously the kids, to get them on their path. Because like we all just said, college is unfortunately missing the mark. Except for like someplace like Northeastern. I'm really about that, because they, in their sophomore year, junior year, they mandate that they help you get an internship and get you freaking out there. And that these colleges not doing it, it's really a shame. They should be ashamed of themselves, quite frankly. And hopefully that will change in the future. But why let our kids have to deal with that when there's another way?
It's interesting that you mentioned the Northeastern model, because I'm on the parent committee at Whitman College, and one of the other parents mentioned Northeastern as the model of where Whitman needs to get to. So it's on the college radars. It really is.
Absolutely, babe, because you know what? With AI, like what you're talking about too, Janice, AI, come on. They can write anything. In fact, this girl, I hate to tell her, but that girl she didn't know how to write an email. She's in her 30s, by the way, but she didn't know how to write an email to this company. So she used AI. And I said, you can't do that. It's saying nothing about you. It's got the words. It's, I think my skill set would be like, and all the bullshit words. I go, you've got nothing in there about you. So we had to recraft it to talk about her fertility journey. She was this educator. She was a school educator. She left it like all just the big words and saying nothing about her. It's just so fascinating and I'm so attuned to what is going out there in colleges and out there in the real world, and what these kids need to do to be prepared for that.
I have a question. I mean,
Sure.
Our kids are all victims of the COVID shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
My kids missed out on all the major milestones of their spring semester of high school.
Yep.
They didn't win the state track meet, which they would have done. They didn't go to homecoming. They didn't have anything. They didn't have their big graduation. They didn't do their first year at USC. They didn't have the dorm experience. They didn't develop that early set of friends. And I know there's this, at least with one, but I think both of them feel like they kind of deserve to have a break. A little bit, and they're not clear on what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And so I'm curious, I mean, you mentioned the kid that went to Morocco, but I'm just kind of curious, are employers empathetic that there's this new crop of kids coming through that have had this really life-changing experience? And I know that my one son had a mental health issue that really, really set him back with his grades. So he's now feeling like, gosh, you know, if I want to go into law school, I won't be able to get into the best law school. Or if I want to, you know, if I want to go get my MBA, I definitely don't have the highest grades, you know, that kind of thing. I'm just wondering if, yeah, is there empathy on the other side of that job where these people
100%.
understand it's way different in other facets? It's not just social media, you know.
1000%. But again, Janice, I will be honest with you. It's how they're able to tell their story.
Right, right.
For instance, I had a lot of kids during COVID, and this one girl graduated from Barnard, and she was like, well, you know, I'm going to have an apartment in New York and I'm going to get a consulting job. And I'd say to her, here's a news flash. The world's shutting down. You're not getting an apartment in New York right now. Like FYI, it was so interesting. So I had an ability where they could work on websites, work on graphic things, do social marketing for a company that I knew of that was helping the elderly in the 5 boroughs get communication. So that when employers, when they did come back from COVID, and we didn't know at that point, would say, what were you doing? You weren't saying I was watching 5 episodes of Friends. You know, you could say during the time of COVID, I was working with an institution that was helping communicate to the elderly how they could be with their families.
Yeah.
You're hired.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to tell you guys, their mindset of the black and white. And then what I bring in is, no, it's not black and white. There's a whole gray area, and how you tell your story in that gray area is the difference between landing an internship and a career and not. But if you go, woe is me, I didn't get this, it's what you did during that time that showed tenacity and, you know, that you pulled yourself up by the bootstraps. And they didn't make any money, but what they were able to put on their resume. And this goes to you, Suzanne, with your daughter, just getting something that she's passionate about that she could put on a resume and then tell a story in it. Then we'll give her the confidence to go in and say, this summer I worked in, maybe it's not directly in the medical, but something in it, maybe a front desk person at a dentist office. Like, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? But she could say, I helped the dentist do this. I was able to help the oral, whatever, if it's a different doctor thing. But you know what I mean? But they don't know how to do that. And Janice, I tell you, with your one son, with the club, he will be able to tell volumes of a story, more than probably any class he ever took,
Right.
and more than USC. And by the way, guys, to the point of USC, yeah, USC has a great name, awesome, amazing. But for the most part, and Suzanne, you know this, nobody gives a shit about what school you go to anymore. That's the thing of COVID, to be honest with you. No one gives a flying F, excuse me, of where you went to school, what your GPA is. It is, what value are you bringing to this company right now? And that's the difference. And they have to learn their value. And we can help them by what we went over today. But that's the key, is what is your value? And how can you talk it in a way that shows confidence and conviction? And I guarantee you 99% of the time you're hired. And that's what the people said to him. And you know what else the people said to him? I told him to call the HR people because it was a smaller private equity. And at first he's like, no. I said, I wanted to let you know that if you call right now, you will be selected. He goes, you know what they told me, Deborah, when I got, and of course he called me. I love it. I got the first interview. I go like, and I'm sitting there going, duh. But you know, I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. He said, because they said I called. Out of the 1,000 applicants, it's because I picked up the phone and called.
Deborah,
That's
do you
what the
think?
HR person told him. What's that?
Oh, sorry, Deborah, it's Joanne.
Hi, Joanne.
Do you think that that approach is the same approach that our children can apply for graduate school? Because they're not, I think both Suzanne and I are thinking about graduate school, you know, so they're applying to law school, applying to medical school. So the internship is the stepping stone to get
Right.
accepted into graduate school. So would you say this approach is the same? You know, I'm just wondering how to use that knowledge. So if it's not the school, not the GPA, do you think that's still the same even with graduate school?
I think it's a little different approach there. And also, here's a big thing. It's all who you know, not what you know.
Mm,
Sorry, it's just the
Mm.
way the world's
True.
working now.
Yeah.
So if you know someone that, like Suzanne, you know, at Whitman, but if whatever, she can Google or go on LinkedIn of who in those programs she went to school with, or professors or whatever. That's another thing. It's, did they become friendly with their professors? Did they make themselves known to these people? And so often they go, no, because they didn't care, or it was 100 people in the thing. It's like, oh my God, that's even more of a reason to go up and say, Professor so-and-so, you know, I'm interested in going to med school and I'm interested in that. Do you think we could have a 15-minute informational conversation? I'd love to take you for coffee.
mhm,
Do you know what a difference that would make?
mhm. Yeah, we've been working on that, of having her build relationships with her honors college faculty. She's also met with one of the law professors that's part of the honors college too, just to build that relationship, so that when letters of rec, when she asks them to write letters of rec, they know her, and like you said, know her story. So thank you for answering that. Is about the who, because that has been our approach of making connections, really building up that part of the application of the letters of rec.
And can I just say something, Joanna, regarding that? And this is for everybody. You know, as I said, I owned a public relations and marketing company for 30 years here in New York, and it's about branding. They need to start to brand themselves. So with the recs, her story needs to align with those recs. Everything needs to align so that whoever it's going to, you know, at the different schools, they get the picture. It's all about the story, you guys, that she's crafted a picture of who she is, not just what she's done.
Mhm, mhm.
And that's what's missing, I feel, across the board at all colleges today and education in general. We're not asking the question, who are you? Who
Mhm.
are you? I went across one time at a college and I went around, who are you? Who are you? And this girl goes, well, I graduated from Cornell and I work for an engineer. I mean, you know, it was like, you know, and I go, who are you? Well, I'm a girlfriend, a sister, you know, a daughter, whatever. Who are you? By the fourth, who are you? She lost it.
Wow.
Mhm.
Lost it. And that's another thing with these kids, that it's branding, but in a value proposition way of their truth of who they are.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Mhm. I think
Yeah.
it's goes back to what you're saying of having our children know who they are, you know, knowing their strengths. So not just hearing what others say about them, but what they believe about themselves and what they identified as their assets, you know, what's going to allow them to achieve what they hope to achieve. And
Exactly.
I think that is maybe the cornerstone to finding their passion, because sometimes they don't know what it is because they have not had the life experiences that we have. But understanding their assets, their strengths, I think that can lead to finding what they're passionate about. And even like a law is just a big field. I mean, there's still so many components that, you know, I think that's what I'm hoping she would find is, what about law? Because that's somehow been something she found herself. We didn't influence that. And so I'm wanting her to cultivate that passion or curiosity that she's identified, and seeing what she brings to that field, you know, whether I believe that she sees herself as empathetic, she's social, she has identified those skills for herself. And so seeing, well, how do you see yourself using these skills or these strengths in that particular field? Because
And
I
you know,
don't know. I am curious.
right. And can I tell you something? Those adjectives that you just used need to be drilled down, because I still don't understand. Like, if you were interviewing, you know, if she was interviewing with right now through what you're saying, I would not understand what her passion is. Those
Mhm.
are adjectives, but
Right.
doesn't describe passion. You know, like what Janice was saying about her son with this club. You know, he could say, like, Janice, what would you say your son's passion? If I asked him right now, tell me a little bit about yourself. You know, you could ask that question to your kids, by the way. If I'm just so curious, you know, you're my daughter or you're my son, and I feel like I know you, but if I was to ask you, tell me a little bit about yourself, what would you say? I'm curious.
My son loves philosophy. And he loves reading old writings, like yeah, really fascinating reading list both my kids have had. And I think that's influencing him. I think it's influencing him lots. He's like, I love math, but there's this other side of me. And I've always encouraged that, because I've always thought he was a little bit of a Renaissance man. And he's discovering that about himself. So yeah, like one just talks more, the other one, yeah. So I see a lot of good stuff that I've gotten out of this discussion to help the other one with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not in a
Exactly.
directive way, in a just, hey, let's catch up. And he's harder to pin down.
But I love that catch up thing. And you know what, you guys, too, I've realized is that, you know, my daughter during COVID, you know, was difficult for everybody, right? But what I've realized too, what I've learned is not to focus on those things, but every day kind of rewiring and reframing my viewpoint of it, that she is successful, that she will be successful, that she's going to find her path. And if we really kind of put that, I'm not trying to get woo-woo right now, but it's really a true thing. It's like a Joe Dispenza thing. What we feel, what we think really goes out to the universe. And it does get to our kids, maybe sometimes more than just talking. So if every day we kind of stay away from fear and anxiety, our own, around or what we perceive them to be, and just start to think about their success, thinking about them going out in the world and being what they want to be and being happy. And then you come with these questions, your whole body language is gonna, you know, it's gonna resonate with them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because we, you know, we tend to label. And we want to move away from that to all acceptance and the possibilities of who they are and can become. Because everybody deserves the chance, is my thought on it.
Mhm.
And I love the way you just said that with your other son. And then you start to prompt some of these questions, you're going to find out stuff. It would be incredible if you call me back and go, you're not going to believe what I found.
Mm-hmm.
It's the coolest. It's just so cool.
Mhm.
Is there any other questions? Joanne, you have a question?
Uh, um, I know I was just um thinking about what you've been saying and thinking about how to help my daughter Grace be able to connect with her passions.
Yeah,
So I'm just trying to think about how it can be truly authentic in
that's
my
right.
conversation with her, rather than, okay, I have a list of things I'm going to ask you, that it could be really coming from the place of curiosity. And
Because I
And
get I get a feeling like the med school and the law thing, just a vibe I'm getting, I'm very intuitive, is a thing that maybe she, and I could be completely wrong, you know her obviously, think that she thinks she should do. So we really want to drill down to what, because I've had kids going to law school and I've had kids in medical school. And, you know, I have this guy, the colorectal guy. And when we came down to a story, because he was kind of that, why, oh, my family, my, you know, he's Egyptian actually. So it was like, well, I want to do it for my family. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to fly when you're speaking, when you're doing the interview things. You know what I mean? It should never be about your family. I also helped another girl with that. And she wrote about, I go, you can't write about your family. Nobody cares about your family. They want to know about you. And what I found out is when he was a young child in Egypt, where all the kids had backpacks, his father gave him a worn out briefcase. And he went to kindergarten with the briefcase and everybody called him doctor.
mm,
And that was a story we wrote about how growing up in Egypt, the parents didn't have a lot of money. And his father gave him a briefcase. And he, from that day forward, he wore that moniker and spent his whole life to become a colorectal surgeon. And then we had some specifics of what he's done and, you know, at Mount Sinai and like whatever, but that has garnered him about 15 interviews. Just from that, it could be as simple as that. Like I drilled down too. I go, you're like, Mohammed, you're not giving me anything. He goes, well, this, you know, and then he told me about the brief. I go, that's everything. That's
mhm,
why you became what you became. Because you loved how people looked at you at 5 years old.
mhm.
And he started to cry. I started to cry, to be honest with you. Because when you find that not, you know, that core thing of what makes up our children, not what we think they are, but what we can put together, the, you know, the like, I don't know what to say, like, you know, the light bulb, that light bulb moment, aha. That's why I have the to-do list, because it's kind of like, oh, I could have had a V8, but meanwhile, I was going down this path. I don't even know why I did. It's really powerful. And then you able to express that, you're done. You're hired. You know what I mean? It's really so simple. And everybody makes it so hard. Is this resonating with you, Suzanne, a little bit more?
Yeah. Yep. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So I hope this was helpful to all of you today. And as I said, I'm completely open to your son, your daughter, your whatever, because you came on today and took the time to learn about ourselves, that I'd be happy to have a conversation with them. And maybe, you know, put a little guidance or whatever. And please visit my website too. It's www.yourcareerdesignlab.com, because a lot of what we're talking about today, especially for the young adults, will really resonate. And I have case studies in there so they can listen to other people and to know that they're not alone. You know, this process of what they're all going through is kind of fucking lonely. And that's the thing too, that they are not alone in this. And they need to know, kind of to your point, Janice, is that, you know, because of COVID and everything, it's like, oh, it's just happening to me. It's happening to me. No. Everybody is going through this. So again, I'm so grateful. Thank you, Suzanne, for being my PR woman. Wow. I really appreciate that. And I hope that you all can take these things away and better your relationships or go deeper. And I'm sure with mothers like you, all your kids will be successful. So thank
Great.
you.
Well, thank you for your time and your wisdom.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thanks a
Take
lot.
care, everybody.